Hey everyone, welcome to Pie's Kitchen. As many of you know, I live in Canada, and so today I've got a sort of a French-Canadian Vietnamese fusion dish to share with you. And I know that sounds very interesting, and it is. Now, I'm making Pho Poutine. So this recipe is another one of Campbell's broth challenge, and they gave me a really interesting broth to work with, and that is pho broth, which is made with all natural flavors and no artificial colors. And yes, for all my vegetarian friends, it is vegetarian friendly. But first of all, if you don't live in Canada, you may not know what poutine is. So poutine is basically French fries topped with melty cheese curds and hot, rich gravy. It's a very quintessential French-Canadian thing. Now, my gravy today is gonna have an Asian flair with lots of warm pho spices. It's gonna be so good. Let's get started. All right, so I'm gonna start with my gravy. So first, I've got just a little bit of oil here, and I've got just some chopped onion and garlic, and I chop them pretty fine because I don't want my gravy to look too chunky, but I do like it when the gravy has a little bit of texture here and there. It makes it look a little more homemade, right? I'm gonna add just a little pinch of salt, and the salt helps draw out the moisture and it'll help your onions soften faster. All right, so now it's nice and soft. I'm gonna go in with my broth here. And for those of you who are not familiar with pho, and by the way, it is pho, not pho. Pho is a Vietnamese rice noodle soup, and the broth is made with chicken bones or beef bones, and it's simmered for hours with lots of spices. So it is a bit of a project to make at home, and usually it is not a vegetarian-friendly dish. So this broth definitely is a great option for you. So I'm gonna add some extra spices to this. So a stick of cinnamon, and I've also got some cloves, some whole cloves going in, and some ginger. A little extra heat. I always like a little extra heat. Now, if you don't live in Canada and you can't find the pho broth where you live, I will include instructions on how to get around that in the written recipe, so don't you worry. So I'm gonna let this simmer now and reduce by about a third, and that's gonna take about 15 to 20 minutes depending on your heat and your pan size, but I wanna concentrate all that good flavor. All right, now I'm gonna make our gravy thickener, and that is the roux. And roux is a very classic French ingredient that's made of butter and flour, and it's used to thicken sauces, soups, gravies, lots of different things. So I've got some unsalted butter here. So I'm gonna let this melt. All right, there's a lot of foam, that's normal. I'm gonna add my flour. This is all-purpose flour. I'm just quickly stir that in. And it's gonna look a little sticky at first, but don't worry, it will thin itself out. And I'm gonna keep cooking my roux until it develops a light brown color and a nutty aroma. Now you can stop your roux at any stage in terms of color, but I find that the browner you let the butter go, the more nuttier flavor you get. So a wet sand is the consistency that you want. If it's a little too thick and it's not loosening up, just add a little bit more of butter, and usually that's all you need. This room smells so amazing right now. The spices and the ginger, my goodness. So now I'm gonna fish out all the spices and the ginger. If the little onions and garlic catch a ride, don't worry about it, as long as you leave most of it in there. All right, so now I'm gonna season this broth with a little extra pho seasoning. So I've got some fish sauce here. If you wanna keep this vegetarian, you can add soy sauce instead. Also, some hoisin sauce. Now, if you go to a pho restaurant, you'll often see a bottle of hoisin sauce on the side of the table. A lot of people like to add it. I think it adds a lot of richness, a little sweetness. Very nice. Now I'm gonna add a little subtle heat with some ground white pepper. There we go. And now I'm gonna thicken this with our roux. So now one thing about using roux is I don't wanna add hot roux to a hot liquid because it can clump up that way. So I'm gonna not turn on the heat on my broth and just let my roux go in. And I'm only adding 3/4 of the roux right now because I may not need it all. And then I whisk all that together. And now I'm gonna turn it back on and let it heat up while whisking because the roux will like to settle at the bottom. Very nice. Look at that color. All right, that looks really good to me. I like to let the gravy simmer for 5 more minutes to cook off any sort of raw starchy flour flavor. And so when that's done, I'm gonna come back and do some final seasoning adjustment, and then it's done. taste. This is very, very important. You want to taste and adjust your gravy. Oh, perfect. So good. Now, I want to add a squeeze of lime at the end to brighten up all that flavor. We've got a lot of warm spices in there that's really comforting and soothing. So a little brightness really balances everything out. And when you get a bowl of pho at a restaurant, they always serve it with a wedge of lime, and I always squeeze the lime in my pho. That did it. Oh, perfect. Before we make the fries, just quickly want to talk about cheese curds. So cheese curds are these cool little chunks of cheese here, widely available in Canada at large grocery stores or at cheese stores. If you're in other parts of the world, you can substitute mild cheddar and you just cut them into small chunks. Now, when you get cheese curds, sometimes they're huge like this. I just like to tear them up a little bit so they distribute a little bit better over the fries. Fries. They can either be the easiest or the hardest part of this dish, depending on how you want to do it. Lots of different ways to make fries, and if it comes from a frozen bag, that is totally okay. So what I've got here is fries that I have pre-cooked. Okay, and so what I did with these is I first blanched the potatoes in some water for 10 minutes. I start them in cold water, a little salt, until they're fully cooked. I let them cool, and then I fry them in a 275-degree oil for 5 minutes. And now I let them cool again, and this is where they're at. Now at this stage, you can put them in the freezer and keep them in your freezer until you're ready to fry. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fry them for the final time at 350 and get them golden and crispy. Yes, I know that sounds like a lot of work, but I think it's worth it. It makes the crispiest fries ever. In these go. And by the way, I'm using peanut oil, which is the best oil for deep frying. However, you can use canola oil as well, or any neutral flavored oil with a high smoking point. All right, so these are beautifully golden and crispy. I'm gonna drain them, and I like to drain them on a rack, because I find if I put them on paper towel, the steam can get trapped, and then they become soggy from the steam. They're perfect. They're absolutely perfect. And that is a poutine I certainly have never seen before anywhere else outside of my kitchen. The hardest part about eating poutine is composing the perfect bite. Oh my God. That is a classic poutine taken to the next level. You really get the scent of cloves, star anise, ginger, and cinnamon that's in the broth. And you get the floral quality of the Thai basil, the crunchiness from the fries, and the creaminess and tartness from the cheese. I mean, everything just works together so well. So the recipe will be on paiskitchen.com. And if you want to know what other recipes you can use the pho broth for, check out cookwithcampbells.ca. And if you make it, send me a photo and let me know how you like it on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Subscribe to the show if you haven't done so, and I will see you next time for your next delicious adventure. Today I've got a French-Canadian Vietnamese fusion. Wait, French-Canadian Vietnamese. French-Canadian is a thing, and then Vietnamese is the other thing. Not French, Canadian, and Vietnamese.
Right.
You know.
Or French, Canadian, Vietnamese. Yes.
Right.